Hello and welcome to Caching Waves. This is an update on Solana. Now, before we dive into what's been going on the last couple weeks, I wanted to talk about the larger count here on the 4 hour, just to give you a bird's eye view of what potentially could be going on here. Well, first of all, we had an impulsive move as an A wave, a complex correction as a B wave. You can see it channeled nicely, came between the 618 and the 786 of the initial move up, at which point we pivoted right up to the 1-to-1 extension. Because of that, I'm considering this a complete correction potentially. If it is part of a larger correction, this would be an A wave in a flat pattern or a W wave in a more complex WXY. Now, what that means is if this is an A wave, as you see here, as a 3-wave move, we'd expect a correction down to around the 618 to the 786 of the entire move, and then 5 waves up after, and we would be looking for an extension. I'm not going to add those on right now, but we'd be looking for an extension whenever we bottom to at least the 1-to-1. Like so, if we bottomed at the 786, it would be down here around 37 bucks. If we bottomed already, we'd be looking up around $40. But in this area, it's a difficult area to decide on, but there will be clarity very soon. Now, off this ABC, we had a 3-wave pattern. I was able to count it as a leading diagonal, but I really didn't like it. And the main reason is it would be counted something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. The problem is in a leading diagonal, you want overlap. Again, just a guideline. It doesn't have to, but you want overlap to be high probability on that. And I would have counted it like this. It doesn't invalidate any rules. But if it was cleaner, I'd be more likely to think that we need that C wave down. But currently just counting it as a series of zigzags in a complex correction as WXY. I've adjusted this channel to the pivot here as the B to see if we stay underneath it. This is just more to pay attention myself once we start breaking above that to invalidate this count. Now, if we do get a move up here, I was discussing with one of the subscribers that if we get a 5th wave up, as you can see, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3 working on 4. If we get 5 waves up here, they would be very clean. It's a clean count. I'm going to show you on the micro in a second. But if we get this, I am very interested in buying the long after the retracement to the upside. Reason being is there's only a handful of patterns that start with 5 waves. And one of those is an impulse. The other is an A wave and a zigzag. So as long as we get 5 waves up, I would be expecting with high probability that we'd get at least 5 more waves up after the correction at the 1-to-1 extension at minimum. And that would be an ABC. So I'm really hoping we get this 5th wave to add to our probabilities that we're going to the upside. And if we do get that, my most likely, say we get our 5th wave up, we come back, we make another 5 waves up at around the 1-to-1 extension. What I would expect from there is 5 waves back down. And the reason for that is if this is a completed correction in itself, this doesn't appear to be enough time. This doesn't appear to be enough time, if that was the bottom here, to correct this entire move. You can see how much smaller it is in time. It's only about a third of the time it took to correct. So I would expect this, if it was making a connecting leg between 2 patterns, that we'd be halfway through a B wave, and this would end up being B, C before we make our next move to the upside. But I would be very bullish if we get this, because if we get a 335, pretty much can only be a connector leg to the upside, as you can see. Alternatively, it could be a leading diagonal here. If it just gets extended out, you can see as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I'd be leaning towards this probability currently, unless the waves told me otherwise as they print. So if we get our 5 waves down, that's what I'm looking for. So last video, I am in the short, and I'm going to leave it short, just because I don't have a lot of position size in this. I think about 50% of my position size so far, and my stop's all the way at this high. So my plan is to leave this open in case we get some nested 1-2s here, and we actually do collapse to the downside, which is very possible as well. But what I'll do is, I'm not going to take the long right now, but if we get our 5th wave up here, I would wait for my correction down, and at this point I'd take my profit. I got in at the 50 here of this down leg. I'd take my profit and flip long at that point. So I'm okay waiting through that. That doesn't bother me. I'd just flip long at that point. So down at the hourly, here's the count we're looking for. So I have our 4th wave invalidation marked out here. That's the trend line I drew. We can just ignore that currently. If it goes through, it doesn't mean anything. That was just to eyeball it, as you saw, to see if we're keeping our downtrend. But currently we had an A wave or a 1 wave up. We did then corrected to between the 50 and the 618 as expected for a B wave or a wave 2. And then we exploded off. If we look at this on log scale, we hit right to the 1.618 extension, which would be more probable as a 3rd wave than a C wave, right? Usually our C waves, we look for the 1-to-1. Again, a 1.618 is also a common target for a C wave, but not the most common. It is the most common for a 3rd wave. So we're just weighing out the evidence that we have right here. Now, I will not lean into that count. I showed you the bullish count until we come down, finish, come up for our 5th between the 200 and the 2.236. And once we correct down to this area, that's when I would get out of my short. And that's where I'd be very interested in a long. And this would become an A wave or a wave 1 if we are very, very bullish. So that's what I'm looking at. This is also a good long trade if you want it. I have my plan. You can make your own financial decisions. But I have my plan, and I'm just waiting through the short, and I'll flip once we get the retracement after. I'm not looking for this long at the moment. It is a pretty nice trade setup though. I just have a lot on the go. And since this is kind of an in-between moment, I'd rather wait and see and get the bigger move after. But of this 3rd wave, this is the retracement. You'd usually expect a retracement between the 382 of the 50 and the 50 for the 4th wave right in this area for the pivot to the upside. Stop can go at the wave 1 high, which is the 4th wave invalidation, or if you're a little more risky and you want higher position size, you can just go on the other side of the 50 by a couple cents like this, and that would be your trade set up there, about an 8-to-1 right there. If you want to be more risk adverse, just go to the 200, which is about a 7.4-to-1, or if you want to do the full if you want to do the most conservative way, you would buy in this area and stop goes at the invalidation level. You can see they're all pretty profitable setups at the moment. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one, just to see if we get that 5th wave up. There is one more way this correction could not be done that I'm also paying attention to, and that could be if we get something like this. See, we get an ABC, zigzag, another ABC, come down to this area, and then we come up and make another 3 or 5 wave there. We can reject from the downside there as well. And all that would be is making a larger sideways corrective pattern here. So something I'll consider if the trade starts going my way in my short. I'd be very weary down at this area about protecting my profit. All right, guys, so that's Solana. There's a lot going on. Even though I'm in my short, I actually hope we get this 5-wave impulse up, and we haven't topped, because this next trade setup would be a pretty exciting one to the upside, because I would take some pretty tight entries to try and get the most risk reward out of that one myself. All right, guys, that's Solana. If you have any questions, let me know. I have a lot of setups on other videos if you want to subscribe. Thanks for watching.